Today we're talking about a great little mushroom, great cultivated mushroom that's also relatively cheap. You can see some variation here. These are king oysters or king trumpets, also known as French horn mushroom or Pleurotus eryngii. Here is where you score them and then kind of pan roast them. They get this really attractive pattern from the scoring, and you can sear the heck out of them. Table of contents here. We're going to go over a low background, cutting and trimming, pan roasting, scoring and searing, and then a few other ideas. As simple and straightforward as I can get here. A little bit of information on these. So these are the largest of all the Pleurotus, and they're wood decomposers, but they're also semi-parasitic with Apiaceae plants. That's the carrot family, and they're cultivated in the U.S., but they might grow wild in Europe and Asia. But if you're in the US, they're going to be cultivated. You can get, about a pound of these for about $3 to $4 at an Asian market. You're going to notice some morphological differences here between these very large ones that are the cheaper ones, and then these more modest sized ones, which are probably closer to if you would pick them wild, and those are on the right. Those, my friend Mushroom Mike LLC grew those, so you can see just a little bit of the variation. Most of these I'm going to be focusing on, for most of these preparations, I'm going to be focusing on the larger ones, just because this larger surface area gives us more possibilities of things that we can do. But both of them are good, and I'll say the smaller ones that my friend grew taste better. See, you can cut these into all kinds of different shapes because of the amount of surface area of the stem. There I cut some julienne. Here I don't really know what I was doing, but I was like, hey, maybe I'll square it off and cook it like a log because that would look attractive. Yeah, I would just cook that whole in the future. One of the things these are known for is cutting them into large rounds and cooking as vegan scallops. There's a few different ways that you could cut them. I mean, small dice, thinly sliced, thickly sliced, pulled apart, shaved paper thin, cut in half and roasted like a steak. If you're going to cook them whole, I would get some of these more modest sized ones, and then we'll just pick them apart and trim a little bit of the substrate from the bottom of the mushroom. They'll get a pan hot. This is a carbon steel pan, and I have it should be a little bit of beef fat there. You could use, any oil, cooking oil that you want, and get that pan hot. And then I'll add a little bit of, crushed garlic clove and some herb sprigs about halfway through. And I'm going to be putting this pan in the oven, about 375, and then I'll put it back on the heat until they're nice and caramelized. But they can make a great little side dish. A little flaky salt, a little chimichurri sauce, or some kind of herb sauce, and that's a nice thing to do. That's a nice side dish, or a nice garnish for a piece of meat or something. So one thing that these mushrooms have become really known for is, on social media, you may have seen chefs scoring these like you would a duck breast, and we're just making really shallow incisions in a perfect kind of like Brune Noisette or 16th inch crosshatch pattern, or maybe more of 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to do the same thing here, kind of pan roast these, and these have a lot of water weight, but just look at that caramelization. So I've heard people say that if you score them, they're not going to bow and curl when you cook them. That's not exactly true. What it does, though, it allows oil to get into the mushrooms there, and you get this really beautiful, relatively even sear, but you can see that they still bow a little bit at the top, so I'm just kind of spot treating that with some hot butter. Really cook them slow, but they make a great meat substitute. I mean, those taste like a steak. They're great. A few other ideas. So, like I had kind of quickly mentioned before, you can take these and cut them into kind of thick rounds. And you want to go, at least half an inch to an entire inch, because they're going to lose about, half of their volume because they contain so much water. And then you can sear those and you can make them into vegan scallops. They're great. If you shave them, These can be fermented or cooked like noodles, or they could be julienned, and they make a really great kimchi. So if you're going to add them to like a soup or a stew, here I'm making mushroom sog, and you want to caramelize the mushrooms before you add them to stuff. Get that water weight cooked off, and that is going to be, you're going to get the deepest flavor from caramelizing them like that. Or you could go for a lighter touch, and you could cut them into fine dice and just kind of float them in soup. That's a little beef broth with Meyer lemon and, quarter-inch diced oyster mushrooms and lots of chives and Meyer lemon zest. There you go. Just a few ideas of different things you can make with the King Oyster or King Trumpet mushroom. All the recipes I discussed here on my website. There's a link at the top of the video description for that. Thanks for watching.